All right, guys, so what we're going to cover in this section is going to be what we call our 4 bullseye positions or our 4 landmarks. Whatever you know helps you understand that there are 4 positions inside of all of the landmine fundamental movements that are going to be your strongest positions of control, leverage, and then therefore the places where you can distribute and apply the most power, strength, force, speed, etc., right? There are certain positions inside of these movements and inside of your body where you have better advantage to create speed and power and strength, right? So inside of this section, we have our base position. We have our position number 2 or bullseye number 2 at our hip. Position number 3 or bullseye number 3 at our shoulder, and bullseye number 4, which is our overhead position. Each of these positions is both an objective place and a subjective feeling, right? So just because, my position overhead looks a certain way doesn't mean that your position overhead will look the exact same way based on your lifting capabilities, based on your intent, based on your experience, and based on your leverage. But the idea is that as long as you are seeking these bullseyes and you understand that for your body, there are certain places that are more powerful or strong or stable than others, you'll understand and be looking for the best possible positions when doing your drills and doing your repetitions with the landmine inside of all the complexes and cool stuff you can do. So as long as you understand that there are 4 positions or 4 bullseyes that you're trying to hit, no matter what movements you're doing, you'll be able to find the most power from your core and from your landmine movements, no matter what workout you're doing. All right, guys, so before we get into all the complex movements that you can do to build power and explosive strength and speed and just have a badass time whenever you're working out, we need to talk about your foundational principles, which for the landmine is going to be your setup, okay, and your intent. All right, so let's talk about the setup first. So for me, the best way I like to use, or the best way I like to set up, is going to be in relationship to the barbell, so that I have a standardized process from one lift to the next, right? So no matter whether I'm tired or fresh or fatigued or whatever it is, I have a standard place I can go to where I know I'm going to be in a good setup position. So the way that I coach it for most people is going to be using the end of the barbell, okay, the end of the collar here as your reference. So if I have my feet about a hip width apart, so imagine I'm going to jump to the sky. Where would I want to set my feet? It wouldn't be out here, and it wouldn't be tight right here, right? It would be underneath my hips, okay, so I can load up and jump. I'm going to have that hip width stance, but I'm going to go into a B stance using the end of the barbell as my reference. So if I'm lifting with my right leg is in front, I'm going to have my right heel equal with the end of the barbell, and I'm going to have my left foot equal with the end of the barbell at the toe, okay? So heel in line with toe, heel and toe in line with the end of the barbell, okay? That is my base stance. If I'm using my other leg, it just alternates like that, right? So whatever leg is in front is going to be the leg that has about 80, 90% of my weight and intention into it, okay? So now that I have my feet in good position, and for you, if you have big old feet or long legs or short arms or whatever it is, these things are gonna vary a little bit, but you wanna make sure that you have a standardized process to then, kind of orient yourself, right? So the end of the barbell is a good place to do that. Once I have my feet set, okay, if I take my opposite hand, so remember, opposites contract, okay, opposites attract, and they work together. So I'm going to be using my left hand and my right leg to work together. I'm going to turn everything into that right hip, which is going to turn my hand over, and I'm going to grab with that overhand grip here, okay? You can see that, because we know that we're going to be rotating the other side, if I have this underhand grip over here, to try to rotate over there would just be super awkward, right? So I want to have everything rotated into that front side leg, all right? And that means that my hand is going to be turned over like this, turning my chest and my hips into that front side leg. Okay, I'm down here in my squat position, right? So my back foot's on the toe, not stuck here on the heel. And everything, my hips, belt buckle, breastbone, and forehead are all turned to this front side leg, all right? So now that I have my position and my rotation, let's talk about our intent. So the first thing is we're going to be intentionally driving the barbell forward, okay? So we have a forward intent. I don't want to be sitting here leaning back, right? I'm going to end up pulling the barbell this way. I'm not going to have the leverage to get underneath it. I want to drive the barbell forward. So I'm leaning slightly forward through the barbell, okay? That's gonna put me more on my back chain, use my glutes and my hamstrings more. Now, I'm also not just holding this position, I'm actively coiling into this position. So my front side arm is pulling deep into this hip, my chest is actively compressing and turning into this front side hip, and I can feel a nice stretch and pull on this backside shoulder. A lot of guys will sit here and stay stuck in the middle with their arm just holding this. I don't want that. I want to be rotated and actively pulling into this front side, which is going to allow me, whenever I do explode out, to really have a lot of elasticity and a lot of power in my switch, okay? So those are the two main things that you need to know about your intent after you have your setup, is that I want to be intentionally forward, all right, trying to push the barbell through the holder or through the corner or whatever it is that you're using, and I want to be intentionally coiled into that front side. Having the intention to coil into that front side is like having the intention to draw back the string on a bow, okay? When I do finally let that string go, there's gonna be a lot of momentum and elasticity and power that carries me to the other side, okay? So I have most of my weight on my front leg, 90% let's say. My feet are in that B stance. I'm coiled into that front side with a nice long shoulder here, and I have a solid position for my hips and my spine so that whenever I go up, everything is nice and decompressed and I can rotate to the other side. All right, guys, so of our 4 bullseyes, we've already talked about our base setup position, right? So that's bullseye number 1, making sure I'm in a really good spot before I even lift or engage with the weight. Now, bullseye number 2 is gonna be inside of that front hip that we get to, all right? So if I set up here, all right, I'm in my nice tight coil position. I have all of my weight loaded on this front leg. My spine is really long, big breath in. I'm driving this elbow and this part of my core into this front hip. As I lift, I want to get to what we're gonna call bullseye number 2, position number 2, which is the barbell just inside of this front hip, okay? The reason I say just inside of the front hip is because I don't want it in the middle of my body, or definitely don't want it on the other side already, because then I have lost the elasticity that I build up from coiling and then being able to snap into the rotation on the other side, all right? So for this bullseye number 2, my feet haven't changed. Nothing really from the base has changed, right? This is just my deadlift from position 1 to position 2. So for position 2, there's a couple of things you really want to make sure that you have. I still want to be coiling, okay? I don't want to have come out of my coil yet. The analogy that works best for me is, again, making sure I build up the tension on the bowstring so that when I do let it go, the arrow shoots as far as possible, or in this case, the weight rotates as fast as possible, all right? So I wanna make sure that I'm still fully coiled here. That is going to do a couple of things as well. It's gonna keep the weight on my back shoulder here. As soon as I start to come out of this, now it's in my hand, it's in my forearm and my bicep, and it's in my shoulder, as opposed to through my lat and through my spine on this side of my body, all right? So I'm still coiled here, keeping it on that shoulder, and that's also gonna make sure that 80–90% of my weight is still digging into the ground on this front side, all right? So just like when we run and we have one leg at a time, okay? This exercise is built to try to make us stronger one side to the other and unilateral, right? So if I'm building all the way to my right side, I explode and I can change over to position number 3 that we'll talk about in a second, okay? So problems that I see, and there's many depending on, you know, what your particular movement strategy is, but is if you tend to feel like you don't get quite enough power or that you're stuck in your core, then you're gonna be living here in the middle, right? So your head is gonna be over the middle of your body as opposed to over that front foot. That's most people that I see. Second is gonna be, you have your elbow already bent, right? So you're already anticipating that you're gonna go to the other side, so you've started to pull with your arms as opposed to staying in your legs and developing all the power from your legs, okay? Number 3 is gonna be, is that in the process of going from here to position number 2, you let your ass go way up, and then now you use your back to get there, okay? And then number 3 is gonna be that I'm not intentional with the length of my spine, right? I've let the weight pull me into a shitty humpback position. I wanna maintain a long spine, but still be coiled, okay? The analogy that works best for me for that is like an accordion, right? I can open the accordion and bend it, so there's a lot of space, a lot of integrity there, but still I have the engagement and the stretch on the opposite side that I'm looking for here, right? So in that position number 2, where the bar is next to my hip, I really wanna make sure that all of my weight is still intentionally driving through that front hip and through that front leg. That is going to help me and be assisted by my coil and my rotation into that front side. I have the length of my spine, and I don't have any slack in my arm yet because my arm is the lever that is going to be used by the rotation of my core and my torso as I go to my clean, which is going to take us to our position number 3 for our shoulder. All right, guys, so we've talked about our position number 1, or bullseye number 1, which is going to be our base and setup position, right? Making sure that everything is nice and lined up before I start to explode off the ground. Now, just like pass and go and you collect your money in Monopoly, I need to pass from this perfect position on the front side of my hip, position number 2, to then be able to clean to position number 3 on the front side of my shoulder here, which is going to be this catch position right in front of my chest on that side. So we're gonna go ahead and bring it up there, all right? I'm gonna talk about the actual movements themselves, the cleans and the snatches and stuff in a different little section, but I just wanna cover these positions because if you have your landmarks and you know where you're going, how you get there is the movement, right? But I wanna make sure that I know what my bullseyes are. So for my bullseye, I'm gonna use my left leg forward, so I'm gonna be my left hand on the underside of the barbell. All right, so there's lots of things that we can talk about as far as errors, but I wanna make sure that we understand what the best position is going to be. So for that front side, if this barbell were to fall down, it would hit me somewhere in the middle or upper third of my leg, right? It wouldn't hit me in the hip, that would mean I'm too close underneath it, and it wouldn't hit me in the knee. That would mean I'm too far behind it, right? So my foot position and where I catch the barbell, if the barbell were to fall down, it would hit me in the middle or upper third of my thigh, all right? With my left hand underneath the barbell, the barbell is gonna come directly into the meat of my pec, directly in a straight line across from the front of my shoulder, all right? A lot of people, they have a hard time with this position because they catch the barbell too low underneath their pec or too high up here by their jaw, all right? That's gonna put a lot of strain on my shoulder and a lot of inefficiency with my movement here, okay? My opposite hand is wrapped over the top with my elbow really long, okay? My front side has a nice bend to the knee with my foot up on the ball. My back leg has a little bit of a bend, again with the foot on the ball and that top elbow really stretched. This is position number 3. I'm leaning into the barbell. Barbell is directly in front of my pec, okay? At the top part, or the middle part of my shoulder, with my opposite arm stretched and my hand underneath me, elbow tight to my body. If my elbow goes out here, then now I'm holding it with my rotator cuff, and that's really hard compared to this. I feel like an elephant could sit on the bar and I would be supported, okay? So with that front side coil in position number 3, this is actually probably the most crucial part, is that I wanna feel like my arm is a part of my torso and a part of this front side hip. If it's out here, obviously I'm not gonna be able to hold a lot of weight. If it's across me here, again, not be able to hold a lot of weight. But if it's in line with this column, my head's over the barbell, barbell's over my front foot and hip, and everything is tied in here, if I can lock that elbow in by coiling on that front side with a good position of the bar, then I can really set myself up to be able to then throw it and explode out with the best possible leverage and explosive power, right? So again, barbell in line with the front of the shoulder and the meat of the pec, everything in line with that front leg and column. If the barbell were to fall, be in the middle of my middle of my thigh on that front leg. My opposite side is really stretched, really reaching, aggressive and violent with that elbow, all right? Everything is nice and long there and everything is coiled and tucked into this front side. All right, guys, so our last position here, we've done all the hard work to basically lift the weight off the floor, throw it to our shoulder, and now we're gonna get it overhead. So this is gonna be the place that you end up at the finish of your clean and jerk, so the jerk portion, or your step and press, or any of your pressing dominant movements, and also your snatch, all right? So the big thing to understand about when the weight is above our head is that all of the weight is up here, but all of our stability is down here at the ground. So it's a very inherently unstable or lacking stability position. So it's your job to create all the stability that connects the big ass weight above your head all the way down to your feet. So all the principles that we're gonna cover that are gonna talk about bullseye number 4 are going to be to help you create that stability so that you can handle 100, 200 pounds above your head without having to worry about your shoulder or the weight falling down on you, all right? So let's go ahead and bring the bar above our head. I'm gonna have my right hand on the barbell, okay? So I was in my position number 3, I've jerked it above my head, now I'm in position number 4, all right? So some main things to consider whenever we're working on position number 4. Let's start at our feet. So our feet are again in what I call the Goldilocks split. Now, if it's a really heavy weight and you need to get under the bar really quickly, your position might be a little longer to be a little lower, all right? But in general, again, the space between my feet is give or take about the width of my shoulders, all right? So this would be too narrow, this would be too far for most people, okay? That's gonna be the position of my feet. My front leg, toes pointed straight forward, underneath my body, okay, underneath my chest with a slight bend in my knee. So not straight and not in a deep lunge here, okay? Again, there's just kind of like a little bit of play there, but the idea is that you have a bend in this knee for some spring and some shock absorption there, okay? My back leg is on the toe with everything pivoted to that front side. The reason I pivot my back leg is because what one part of my body does, the other part of my body will respond to. So if I pivot this back leg, it's gonna help this hip turn, which is gonna help my chest turn, which is gonna help me reach this barbell higher, right? Making everything really nice and tight and connected and taking out the slack, okay? So my back leg is pivoted, my hips are turned towards this front leg, my chest is turned towards this front leg, and now before we get to where the barbell is, my same side arm as my front leg, or opposite the barbell, is pulled really tight to that front side hip. Not just with my arm, but with my core trying to drive the coil deeper on that front side leg. It's the exact same intention that you had whenever the barbell was here on my lift off, right? Everything's coiled to that front side hip. Nothing has really changed there, okay? So it's all to tie my core, my shoulder, and everything down into my hips, which is gonna connect me to the ground. Now, let's get to where the barbell is over my head, okay? If I am not reaching through this barbell, that means that there is slack in my system, which means that the barbell is now sitting on my muscles, okay? The difference between being here and being here and actively reaching through the barbell is the difference between the bar being on my shoulder versus being on my hips and on my leg, right? If there's slack in my system, then now it has to work through my shoulder versus if there's no slack and the coil is really tight, now it's in my legs, okay? And that's a lot more powerful because my support comes from the ground, all right? So that's the ideal position that you're gonna be in for your overhead. Now, the barbell, I want it to be in line with my long side, okay? So my front side is as short as possible. My back side is as long as possible to, again, take out all the slack. If this barbell is over here, very tough for my shoulder. Over here, very tough for my shoulder. In line, very easy for my shoulder and all the weights on my legs, right? So I like to picture train tracks. Barbell falls down this train track, my head and my coil is over this train track. Everything is nice and balanced and everything can work together. Okay, some of the main issues that I see whenever people are in their bullseye number 4 or their overhead position, we'll start at the feet, is again, we don't have a proper kind of stance position. We're either too short or we're too long, all right? You wanna have that nice Goldilocks step. Second is gonna be that your feet are on train tracks. For whatever reason, a lot of people when they split, they take this leg behind the other one like a curtsy, and then they're walking on a tightrope. When you have a big ass weight above your head, you don't wanna be on a tightrope. You wanna be nice and solid here, all right? So I see very few people go too wide. Most of the people I see go too narrow. So try to land, again, on those train tracks and err on the side of width, okay? Number 3 is gonna be, you catch with your hips too high, okay? So you have no bend or athleticism in your lower body. I want to see a nice bend in your legs so that your hips can absorb a lot of the force that's now above your head, okay? As far as your core goes, again, if you're stuck in the middle here or your core is not active, then you're gonna be losing a lot of your power. So I need you to be coiled tight into that front side with all of your rotation and your bending intentional into that front leg. Okay, and then lastly here, this arm, okay, is not really reaching. I need you to reach through the barbell because you don't want to be hit by the barbell, you want to hit the barbell, right? You want to be on the offensive there, all right? So again, make sure you have that nice Goldilocks split, which is going to make sure that you're not too high or too low. Make sure that you have your rotation into that front side and that your arms are very, very active with your body positioned on the nice equal train tracks.